I'm Michael Bain, and welcome to Triggered, coming to you from Dragon House Studios at the secret hidden bunker in the Rocky Mountains, and brought to you by Midway USA, just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Today, we're going to talk about this little guy right here. This is a Taurus GX4. Essentially, it is Taurus's entry into the great Mini 9mm sweepstakes. Right now, Mini 9mm are the hottest carry guns in America and have been so for about 3 years. So Taurus spent some time designing what they see as the ideal gun to drop into that category. So before I do anything else, let me take you through the GX4. It is single action, striker fired pistol. Now, much like a Glock, much like an M&P, fill in the blank, and it is different from some of the other Taurus pistols. Typically, what Taurus has done over the years is upgrade their Millennium Pro platform. Now, that platform was a double action, single action platform, meaning that you had a double action option if a round failed to go off. We've talked about this before. So if you went bang, bang, click, you could just pull the trigger again and hope it goes bang. Well, Taurus moved away from that with this gun to a single action striker fired pistol. If you take a look at it, the GX4 fits exactly within what I think is the framework of a Mini 9mm. Where did that framework come from? Guess. This is a SIG 365. It's actually a CO2 version of a 365. So if I accidentally shot you, I would just raise a whelp on your behind. But the 365, with its 10+1 magazine, helped define this field. And the field is where everyone wants to be. So Taurus looked at what they thought of was best practices in the Mini 9mm field. This particular gun is 11 and 1. 11 rounds in the magazine, 1 round in the chamber. You can also get 13 round magazines, plus you can get 10 round magazines for states where there are magazine limits. Colorado's 15, we're cool with 11.1. If you start from the bottom here, look at the frame. It's a stainless steel construction polymer frame, polymer grip frame here. And this is a Taurus 22, and this is about 3 years old, but I think of it as the progenitor of the new generation of Tauruses, where Taurus started really experimenting with ergonomics with this 22. Well, I think they've carried that experiment to completion with this frame. This is a genuinely excellent frame. Let me tell you why. It's cut high. I actually can wrap, if you can see right here, I can actually get a little finger wrapping around this gun. Now, that may not be the case with the other Mini 9mm. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the second segment. But I have smaller hands, and so for me, this is a good grip. I took this gun yesterday and ran 5 rounds of my self-defense ammo, 115 grain Hornady, through it as quickly as I could, and I never lost this grip. I think part of that reason is because the stippling here is flawless. I'm a stippling junkie. I want it a certain way. Because I was a competition shooter, I got used to really sharp checkering. My friend Rob Latham used to refer to competition checkering as blood donor checkering. You knew the checkering was sharp enough because when you clamped your hand down, you pull back, lots of little bits of blood on it. But the problem with really, really sharp checkering or really, really sharp stippling is that for a carry gun, it's going to rub against your clothes constantly. And it's going to rub holes in your clothes. Ask me how I know. Also rub holes in chairs and other things like that. So Taurus came up with a stippling pattern that is aggressive, but not overly so. And you can see that here in these stippled panels. They also have this index point, one on either side, that is stippled. The reason for that, and one of the reasons I like it, one of the reasons that I've actually had it added to some of my other guns is twofold. Number one, when you say take your finger off the trigger and put it on the frame, where do you put it on the frame? Well, you now have a reference point. That stippling gives you a reference point for finger off the trigger. The other reason is with a forward grip like this, which is essentially what everyone is shooting with now, because you know why? It controls the gun better. You can see that this stippling adds an index point for your weak thumb. Your weak thumb has something to reference when you get to the grip. You know, if you grip back here and you don't feel that stippling, well, you've missed your grip. I think this is one of the most ergonomically designed, smartly designed small frames I've ever seen. You got this big thing up here in front, and you know, I know people who shoot like this. I know you're not supposed to. I know that all the cool kids no longer ever wrap their finger on here. But you know what, when you're talking about a little gun like this, maybe it's something you can experiment with. One other quick point here. You will notice here with magazine inserted, there's little gaps here. You can see that right in there. And that's because what if something happens and you have to strip the magazine, and it will happen. Push the magazine release and then you're able to actually get a grip to pull the magazine free. Once again, when I start talking about little guns, I'm talking about incremental designs, thoughtful design elements that go into this gun. One thing different from almost every other Taurus I've ever seen, no manual safety. Doesn't need one, doesn't have one. You'll also notice that the way the frame is contoured, here's your slide release. It's accessible, it's easy enough to use, and at the same time, it's got this small well around it, so it's not going to snag. We'll have more on the little GX4 when Triggered returns.
Years of laziness led to this very moment. Looks like Stan's gonna need some help. Let's get some organization in here. Some lighting, some security, some monitoring.
That does look nice.
Imagine that! There's more room in an organized vault. Keep your valuables organized, safe, and secure with Lockdown. Secure your lifestyle.
Welcome back to Triggered, where today we're talking about the Taurus GX4. Taurus's newest entry into the Mini 9 sweepstakes. We were talking about the frame when we stepped out for commercial. You'll notice magazine release button, a little bit kind of like a SIG, triangular, falls exactly in the right position. I think that's important. The thing I want to talk about here is the trigger. Remember we told you that Taurus went away from the second strike capability. A lot of people like a second strike capability. However, if you've gone through any training, you've gone through gun sight, you've gone through any number of shooting schools, you're taught malfunction drills. And the malfunction drills are so you can clear malfunction with any gun. So if a gun has a different manual of arms, say instead of the tap, rack, bang that you're taught to clear malfunction, instead you got a second strike capability, then that limits you just a little bit. I'm glad to see Taurus has abandoned it. And it's not just Taurus. If you look at the wonderful HKP7 squeeze cocker, if you shoot that gun or you carry that gun, that better be the only gun you carry because it's a unique manual of arms. The thing that is really neat about this trigger, though, you can see it's a flat face trigger, which I prefer. It's got a little take up and then a really clean, crisp break. On my Lyman gauge, I averaged out as maybe 1/10 over 6 pounds. But because it's a crisp break, it's easy to shoot, easy to run. And watch the reset. That's a quick reset. Very, very quick right there. All in all, I think this trigger is a triumph. The other thing to look at here, where does the trigger break? It doesn't break really far back here. Taurus's first run at a Mini 9mm, I think in 2010, was the Taurus Slim with 509 Slim single stack 9mm, and the trigger actually broke back here. The trigger only released at the very, very back of the frame. However, this one breaks in exactly the correct place. If we go up from there, turn this one, turn this screwdriver head here, turn it 90 degrees, and then all you got to do is take the slide off. It's really easy to do. You have to pull a trigger, turn the knob, take the slide off. The slide itself, everything here is, again, thought out. The serrations, front and rear serrations, are excellent. They're deep enough to actually give you something to grip. A lot of times you see front serrations that really don't do much for you, right? These actually work. When you look at the sights, it is a white front dot and a steel serrated rear. Here's what's important. Something that Taurus carried over from some of their earlier guns. These are Glock pattern sights. What's the most common fixed sight in the entire universe? Glock. So, if you want to change these sights, it's not a big deal. Get a Glock sight. You want a fiber optic front? Get the fiber optic front. One thing you notice is missing here is this gun is not cut for an optical sight. Now, in my own thinking, that's probably a budget item. This is a MSRP $392, $393 gun. That's a really good price point, knowing that you're going to see it knocked down probably 50 bucks, maybe a little more than 50 bucks. However, if you have to do the extra machining and then add a fit plate and the drills and tapping for a sight, it's going to raise the price. I love optical sights. One of the things I wanted to show you here is this is the Ruger Max 9, and it is fitted with a Sentinel, Swamp Fox Sentinel red rear dot sight. I like that. Not everybody does, or not everybody is willing to pay for it. You know, when you start talking about, I'm going to build up a carry gun, and I'm going to need the gun, I'm going to need holsters, I'm going to need a belt, I'm going to need this, that, or the other, it can add up. Now, what I would expect is a version of the GX4 cut for a red dot at some point in the future. Very much the same way you saw with the G3c. We're going to talk about it in the next segment. It's about a 3-inch barrel, a little bit longer, width about an inch, which is just about right. I'd take 3/4 of an inch if I can get it. Probably not. You can see it is consistent with the Ruger, although the Ruger's a little bit longer in the grip. It is consistent with the SIG 365 that define the form. So you have good ergonomics. The barrel itself is a diamond light coating, right? DLC, which means it'll probably be in really good shape long after you're not. When I started shooting it, the thing that struck me the most was being able to shoot it easily. Now, if you have bigger hands, obviously I have girly man hands, it's my trial, somehow I'll live with it. The GX4 comes with a second back strap, a little bit of a fatter back strap. Pop that pin, pull this down, click this in. For me, the smaller back strap is best. For me, the key is how can I lock the gun in. Now, would I like a little bitty pinky rest expansion on this bottom? I might. I imagine I'll be able to lay my hands on one pretty quickly. But for right now, with just the 11+1 magazine, here we are. I have the grip. In shooting this gun, what I found was I didn't lose the grip. Standing at 5 yards, I shot ball, and then I went into my self-defense ammo, which now I'm going to have to mortgage the house again. But both of them shot well. 115 grain shot to point of aim, 124 grain ball shot a little bit to the left, maybe the other left. But in any case, I could run the gun fast, and that is a critical issue with this type gun. So I think Taurus has done a pretty amazing thing. I think they've, as I said in the written article, which I'll go ahead and give you a link to that on the Michael Bain blog. You can get the specifics on everything. I think Taurus trumped themselves, and they dropped a gun that is going to work perfectly within the niche that it's designed for. And again, I'm old enough to remember when people thought that a steel 1911 Commander in .45 was a good small gun. Those days are gone. The GX4 is an impressive little gun with a lot of very, very well thought out details. We'll be right back. This week's Triggered is brought to you by Midway USA. just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Taurus USA, designed to protect. Rock Island Arms Core, solid as a rock. Volquartsen, engineering the world's finest rimfire rifles, pistols, and parts. And Franklin Armory, making some of the most innovative guns in America. Welcome back to Triggered, and before we got out of here today, I wanted to show you the G3c, the G3 compact Taurus with the red dot sight. You know what's kind of funny is we did a whole piece on this G3c, which I do like. I like this gun, but after handling the G4X, this gun feels huge. It's like, oh wow, this thing is a monster. It isn't, but it certainly feels that way. But I mentioned to you then that I would not be surprised if Taurus immediately offered a version of the G3c with, instead of just a flat top slide there, they would have it already cut for red dot sights. And that's the case with this Taurus G3c. It comes with a plate that you unscrew and take off, and then they give you, I think, 5 separate mounting plates. And each one of those plates covers a specific or a number of specific red dot sights. Now this particular plate that's on here is for Trijicon. And this is a Trijicon SRO, which is not the type sight I would put on this gun. It happens to be the type sight that I had on my desk that I put on this plate. Typically this would also fit a Trijicon RMR. Regardless of which red dot sights you have, it can be accommodated on a G3c, which, like I said, wow, this thing got big. And as we mentioned before, you can sort of see the difference here between the G3c, which is the most evolved version of the Millennium Pro line, and then the GX4, which is a jump to a different platform. I like having the ability to put any sight I want on it because I use red dot sights, or green dot sights as it were. That may not be the case for you. Typically at this point in time, there's a real race going on with red dot optics, roughly in the $200 to $300 price range. Now, are there optics less than that? Yes, there are. The only one that springs to mind that I would risk having on a gun is Romeo Zero, which is on one of my EDC carry guns, one of my SIG 365 XL carry guns. However, if you get right at that $200 to $300 mark, you see a lot of people moving into that niche. I've been talking about Swamp Fox, which is in that niche, Lucid, which is in that niche. Holosuns, some of the Holosuns are in roughly that frame, and Holosun's very, very well thought out sight. I have a Holosun on my competition gun, and I like it a lot. So it isn't as cripplingly expensive as it used to be. When we started out with this, we said everybody gets a Trijicon RMR, that's $6 bills. Or you can get an Aimpoint Arca, that's $9 bills. Red dot sights can get really expensive. And that's why when I was talking about the GX4, I'm not going to smack Taurus for not making it 100% red dot adaptable. Because once again, we're aiming for a price point here. And so when you see the G3c and the G3c, which is set up with the Taurus T.O.R.O, get it? Sight mounting system, you're maybe 50 bucks up on that. You're going to pay for that. And so you're going to pay for that, and then you're going to pay for the dot. And then you may have to change holsters. That's one thing. It's only really recently that holster manufacturers, concealed carry holster manufacturers, defaulted to having a red dot on the gun. Until last week, you almost had to say to them, like, guys, look, the gun's got a red dot on it. What does that mean? That means in the holster, you're going to have to cut down a little further to allow this gun to seat with the red dot on it. So there's a lot of issues like that. I think it makes sense to say, well, you can have this one, you can have that one. You have it your way, have it your way. So anyhow, this is what a G3c looks like with a dot sight on it. A little bit larger package. it remains one of the most popular carry guns in America. It's been that this series, G2, G3 series, has been PT111, have been an enormously successful series for Taurus. And I got to say, I got to give them credit. When you've got a successful series that you've been mining for a long time, it takes a lot of research and honestly a lot of guts to jump to a new platform like the GX4. So, I'm Michael Bain. I can assure you today has not been a lot of bull. Get it? Taurus, bull. You can find us on michaelbain.tv. You can find us on YouTube. If you do find us on YouTube, please hit that subscription button. As always, we are brought to you by Midway USA. Just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. If you need a place to buy that red dot sight, that's the place. We will see you next week.